Carlos Gallardo, the original mariachi and producer. Originally, when I made the first El Mariachi, I made it for the Spanish home video market, and all they wanted was an action movie. And since I was a cartoonist, I had to think of an idea that was a little bit off kilter and kind of fun. So I didn't want to make it about an ex-cop, I thought I want to make him a guitar player. I thought that would be a fun movie to make, just as a throwaway to learn filmmaking, really not to put much attention to it. And I was going to use that as a way to learn how to make movies so that I could then go make a serious American independent film to get attention with.
I can remember hearing about the kid from Texas who did El Mariachi for $7,000, and, you know, hearing about it back then thinking, good.
I remember very, very specifically seeing El Mariachi. I remember the theater. I remember it was even before there was a lot of spin put on it as far as how little it cost. I saw this movie, this rough, low-budget movie, and said, wow, this guy's a filmmaker. He knows how to tell a story. He has a great sense of the event.
We're originally going to remake Mariachi as Desperado, and then we ended up doing sort of a sequel to it. And again, that one I did sort of as a way just to show Hollywood what I could do with a smaller budget. So I did Desperado, I put lots of action in it. It was a $7 million movie, probably the cheapest studio movie at the time. I think it did about $25 million at the box office. It was a little ahead of its time because there hadn't been any really Latin movies, and people didn't know what to make of it. They didn't really know how to sell it. But it was one of those movies that would come back, you know, on video and cable and build a cult audience.
The movie plays almost like a rock and roll record. You can just go scene by scene and independently, one from each other, they make sense. They are this kind of visual fantasy, action visual fantasy.
For, you know, a lot of years, action in films has sort of been misused and abused and kind of the everyday sort of cliche thing it's always done. But Robert's kind of action sequences had great humor to them, and also sort of a beautiful salute to the old Sergio Leone westerns.
Quentin showed up on the set to shoot his part for Desperado. He said, "This is your Dollars trilogy." And I was really just thinking of doing Desperado, and that was it. I was going to go do other movies. I never thought of doing the third part. So this is your Dollars trilogy. You've got to make part 3 now. And we were still shooting Desperado. I was like, what are you talking about? So this is like your Sergio Leone, you know, Dollars trilogy. Mariachi's a fistful of dollars. Desperado is for a few dollars more. Now you got to make the epic. Now you've got to make the big one. But it's got to be epic, and it's got to be called Once Upon a Time in Mexico. He told me this in '95.
That's right.
And years later, you know, Columbia kept calling, saying, you know, Desperado's really picked up a lot of awareness. People have really watched it, and it's one of our biggest sellers. You should do a sequel to it. And I thought, well, if I do, it has to be epic, and it has to be called Once Upon a Time in Mexico. And they said, that's the only way we should do it.